What youngster, at one time or another, hasn't dreamed of playing baseball in the major leagues? Sure, it starts with a dream, but it takes much more than dreams to make it to the top.
Dr. Danny's pitched a great game for them. Bottom of the ninth. 2 out. Looking for a 17th save. Here's the windup. The pitch.
Becoming successful at any sport, including baseball, takes ability, desire, and a knowledge of the sport.
Dr. Dan looks real strong here in the ninth.
You may be born with the ability, and in time you may develop the desire. But the knowledge of the game is something you must learn.
The fans are on their feet. Here's the pitch.
Strike 3, you're out. If you're going to do something, do it right. Learn from the best. And who better qualified to teach the basics of pitching than a major league pitcher who instructs the major leaguers? A pro who teaches the pros. The pitching instructor for the world champion New York Mets, Mel Stottlemyre.
Thanks, Bob. As you may have heard before, pitching is 75% of baseball. After 22 years of professional baseball, I believe that at times it may be more than that. I've learned many things about pitching, and every day I spend on the field, I continue to learn. Before going to the mound, it's very important to properly warm up. Stretching your arms and legs, loosening up slowly, perhaps even running a couple of laps in the outfield will all help to condition your body. Never throw the ball hard during your warm-up until the last few minutes. During my warm-up, I work on my mechanics, concentration, and make sure that my control is good on that particular day. With good control, proper mechanics, good concentration, I now have the confidence to head for the mound and face my first hitter. So now, come along with me, and I'll show you the proper mechanics, which will help you become a better pitcher. Now that we're out here on the mound, I think before we step on the mound and go through the proper mechanics of pitching, we should talk a little bit about the grip on the baseball for throwing a fastball. There are two basic types of grips. One is with the seams or holding our fingers along the long seam of the baseball. That's called a two-seam fastball, and it's used by the majority of pitchers because I think for the most part we generally get a little bit more movement with that type of grip than we do with the other grip, which is across the seams with my thumb underneath and two fingers across the seams. This is called a four-seam fastball. This grip is usually used by a pitcher like a Dwight Gooden, a Nolan Ryan, somebody that possesses above average velocity and can throw the ball hard enough to make the ball rise or slide in the strike zone. After we've selected the grip, which should be our grip, it should be a ball that's comfortable in our hand, and if we do have a smaller hand, at times it's good for us to go, instead of 2 fingers in the thumb, to go to 3 fingers in the thumb. One other important thing about throwing the fastball is that we need to have a little bit of space between our fingers. You can see right here that there's a small hole. We need to have that space between the palm of our hand and the fingers. Since the fastball is the #1 pitch in baseball, I think there's some things that we could add as far as the grips on the fastball and things that we can try to do whenever we throw a baseball. One of the most important things naturally when we throw a baseball, I covered this earlier, but we want to try to get as much space as we can out here between the palm of the hand and the baseball. We want to get it out on the fingertips, and again I have the ball gripped with the seams, and as I release this baseball I want to make sure that I stay on top of the ball. And when I talk about staying on top of the ball, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting right out there to where I'm on top of the baseball, and I'm going to release the ball on a downward plane, and then I'm going to cut my arm across my left leg. But the important thing is the release point here. I got to release the ball out front and get good extension on the fastball. Now if I held the ball across the seams, it would be the very same thing. Again, there are things that I could do with the ball here as far as putting extra pressure on one finger or another to make the ball move one way or another. That is a little advanced and perhaps should be worked with under the direction of a coach full time. The other pitch I think I'd like to talk to you today about is the change of pace or the change-up. Now there's several different ways of throwing a change-up. The way that I learned the change-up, it's commonly known as a slip pitch, and basically that's what it does. It slips out of your hand, and what I do is I take my same fastball grip, I slide my thumb up, and the finger that's holding the baseball over here, you see my middle fingers here are off the ball, and get it back in the palm of my hand. Now what I'm doing here is I'm getting the ball back in the palm of my hand. It's going to keep me from getting a lot of flexibility here with my wrist. But the other thing I want to remember is I get ready to deliver the baseball, I want to get right to this point here, and I'm going to lead a little bit with the elbow and pull down. Now as I pull down, the ball has slipped out of my hand. I'm going to do it again here. I'm going to show you, and if you were close here, you could actually hear a little, the ball slipping right out of my hand. Once again. Now one of the things that we have to learn to do is to control this pitch, and I always recommend that whenever you're starting with this pitch, start about 45 or 50 feet away just to get the feel of the ball in your hand. After you do develop a feel for this pitch, then you can move the catcher back and you should kind of set your sights a little bit lower, because the majority of the time, if we'll set our sights a little lower on the changeup, we'll get the ball down in this area which it needs to be effective. We won't cut the pitch short, as I'm going to do here. This is one of the common problems of throwing a changeup. I've cut this pitch off and really haven't followed through, which is a very important part of throwing a changeup. Because after all, the hitter is hitting a lot off of our timing as a pitcher, and if we can maintain the same windup, the same delivery, and then give him an off-speed pitch, we have a chance to get him out. One of the other changeups that's very popular in the big leagues today is what they call a split finger changeup. And with the split finger changeup, I suggest riding one seam or another, throwing the ball with the seams, splitting the fingers, and therefore it does get a little farther back in our hand. And then we merely just think about staying on top of the baseball. And again, we have to pull down once we get to this point right here. We think of pulling a shade on a window, and I think that'll always make us pull down, keep our motion good, and we have a consistent follow-through, which is very important at the changeup. Many times pitchers that start with a split finger changeup like this very soon end up splitting their fingers a little bit more, and before very long they have a fork ball. I would recommend staying away from this, because this has a tendency, especially at kids at a younger age, has a tendency of tightening up the wrist. And again, anytime we tighten the wrist and we take away from that natural movement that we should have in our wrist, we're going to take away from the development of a fastball. Remember, the fastball is the most important pitch in baseball. All the other pitches come off that. We should be able to pitch effectively with a good fastball that we can throw in several different locations at an off-speed pitch of some type. If your hand happens to be too small for either one of the grips that I've recommended here, I think there's some things that we can do, some adjustments that we can make to where you still can be very effective as far as throwing a baseball. Maybe I can bring Dan up here and demonstrate this. Now Dan here has a smaller hand, much smaller than mine, and to hold the ball with two fingers and a thumb, it just really makes us choke the baseball. And the thing that we want to keep from doing in our grip is we want to keep from choking that ball and get it out on our fingertips as much as possible. So Dan, let's go instead of 2 fingers. Let's 3 fingers. Let's close them up just a little bit. Maybe grip them with the seams here and that part of the baseball. There. Now he's able. Does that feel comfortable to you? If not, you can take it back in your hand just a little bit, but we don't want to get it all the way back to where we choke it. Does that feel a little better? I think for your size hand, and if we do have the size hand of a youngster, of a 10 or 11-year-old, we really need to take the 3-fingered grip. Later on, we can just simply drop 1 finger out of the way, back here, and we're right back to the grips that I talked about before. Now that I've selected my grip, and in this demonstration, I'm going to use the with the seam fastball because that is what's most comfortable for me. I'm going to step on the rubber, and the stance that we have on the rubber, the positioning, is very important. Since I'm a right-handed pitcher, I want to step to the right side of the middle of the pitching rubber. That gives me a chance to have a better pitching angle at the plate, and for the most part my pitches will be more effective. Once I've selected my stance on the rubber, again I use the word comfort because we must be comfortable when we get here, or we're not going to be able to relax and be able to throw strikes, which is our #1 objective right now. The next step is the step back. The step back should be only about 6 inches. It shouldn't be more than that, because if we do step farther back this way, we have a chance for our body to fall backwards, and we're going to have a hard time getting it in proper position to deliver the pitch. And I'll talk to you later about release point, which this really seems to affect. So we want to keep a step back about 6 inches and prepare for the pivot, which is the next step. Now, one other thing I should mention whenever we step back here, the reason for us to step straight back is that we're able to keep a proper perspective at all times of the catcher and where he is behind home plate. If we have a tendency to step sideways, which you'll see happens a lot of times, especially with younger pitchers that have been taught that way in Little League because they have a hard time taking the next step, it's something that we should learn as soon as we are old enough to be able to coordinate our body to step straight back. After the step back, the next position that we want to try to assume, they call the pivot. We want to turn our pivot foot, which is the back leg, and we want to turn it parallel to the rubber and get in a position to where we're going to deliver the ball to home plate. And this is done simply by stepping parallel to the rubber, and we turn, and whenever we turn, it's very important that we turn our hips so that the hitter actually sees our back pocket. Now, what I'm doing right here is a very important thing for young pitchers to be able to do. I'm maintaining my balance as I come around on my pivot foot. I have all the weight distributed on my back foot, and I'm preparing to launch the pitch towards home plate. Now, as I do this, I want to make sure that all my weight is distributed on the back foot, and you'll notice that I'm getting ready to bend my back leg. Now, as I bend my back leg and bring my left leg up, my hands are going to break so that I get in a position to deliver the baseball to home plate. So I go from here, I break my hands, and now with shoulders square, because it's very important that I don't tip my shoulders. I'll show you later on why. I'm gonna drive this baseball right toward home plate. Now I'm beginning to get into the next step, which is my stride. As I stride, I want to make sure that I'm hitting on the ball of my foot, not the heel. If I land on the heel, there's a good chance that I'll slip and not go directly at the catcher. And I also want to make sure that as I'm coming around here, I have not thrown my left shoulder open or opened up too fast. Again, we want to make sure that we step directly at the catcher, keep my shoulder square, and as I throw my left glove out here, my left hand, it is my lead hand. My right one is going to come around here, and again, my shoulder should be in a fairly square position. I'm now getting ready to deliver the baseball and getting ready to come into my next step, which is the follow through or landing. After I've delivered the pitch, the baseball actually is gone. I've delivered the pitch. I'm ready now. I'm a fifth infielder. I'm ready to be able to cover first base on a ball hit to the first baseman. I'm ready to also, with a man on first base, I'm going to be able to cover the bag and be the back half of a double play on a 3-6-1 double play. I'm also in good fielding position here to field a bunt, hit on either side of me. One thing that we always must learn, that after we come into this position here, any ball automatically that's hit on this side, it's our responsibility to cover first base. Now that we've completed some of the mechanics of the wind-up position, we want to go into the stretch position. In other words, with a man on first base or runners on base where we have to stretch. One of the most important things, again, we have to be very comfortable, and we have to have our pitching foot, our back leg, has to be in contact with the rubber while we're taking the sign. Now, this may not apply in all leagues, but here in the major leagues, you have to have contact with the rubber while taking your sign. There are several ways for us to reach a comfortable position here, from the stretch position. The one that I recommend probably is for us to be comfortable here with our weight evenly distributed so that any time the runner should break or anything like that and try to make you balk, we're able to step off of the pitching rubber. We can do this in turn, and we can throw to any base and not have a balk committed. If we should be in contact with the rubber and we make a move as we come up, with our hands here, if we make any kind of move here with our shoulder, which I've opened up here so that I'm able to see the base runner, we have to leave it there until we deliver the pitch. If we come to set position like this in a closed position and we happen to not be able to see the runner and we turn, once we turn our shoulder, we have to go to first base or we commit a balk. It's very important for us, therefore, to be comfortable at all times so that we don't balk and allow the base runner to advance a base. Now, again, with my feet, I've selected a position here on the rubber about halfway or a little better than halfway since I'm right-handed. We could back up here a little bit, but I think whenever we do that, we have a different angle at the plate, and we're going to want to deliver our pitches, which is the number one thing, the same as from the wind-up position. You'll find that many pitchers take the sign like this with the ball in their glove. Some take it with the ball in their hand. Whatever is comfortable for you, and as long as we don't commit a balk, is fine. I don't really recommend one set way. One thing is very important, I think, as we bring our hands up, approaching the position where we're going to deliver the pitch to home, we want to try as best we can to keep our hands and our glove a little higher. Therefore, if we do decide to turn and throw to first base, we don't have the problem of bringing our hands up quite so high as we do in this position here. You'll find that many young pitchers come to a stretch position like this. In order to throw to first base, I've got a long ways to go back here, and that gives the base runner extra time as far as being able to get back to first base. From that point on, once we've achieved a position here with our hands as high as possible to where we are comfortable, I want to do the same thing that I've done from the wind-up position at this point right here. It's just a little shift back of the weight without raising the shoulder, and I want to keep the leg kick, in this case, as low as possible and still be able to get a lot on the pitch. So I'm here, I'm going to lift the leg, and I'm going to drive towards home. Now from this point on, I'm exactly the same as I was from the wind-up position. Now that we've gone over the proper throwing mechanics that we want to try to have each time that we deliver a pitch to home plate, let's have a few of you youngsters throw and see if we can find some of the common mistakes that we make as a pitcher. I'm not going to pick on any of you directly, so let's each of you try to throw your natural throwing motion and see if we can't help some of you today. How about you first? One of the first things that you're going to want to do, I can see that already, is that we want to forget stage 1 and 2 in the wind-up, and we want you to step right here, right in front of the pitching rubber with your foot right there against, and we want to go from your foot turned there, we want to go from that position. You're a little young yet to really go into the step back and the pivot, so we're going to start with step 3 on him, and he's going to want to step and try to get some weight on your back leg and throw it to Mr. Robinson, who's our catcher up there today. Okay, it wasn't too bad. One of the things that he forgot to do is one of the most important things in pitching is he didn't have any follow-through. And there's a lot of reasons for having a good follow-through, but the number one reason for having a good follow-through is to protect our arm so that we don't throw with just our arm. We want to use the rest of the body here and try to get a little bit more on the pitch by having a proper follow-through. Let's have one more, and whenever you hit here, let this back leg come right on around after you've delivered the pitch. Okay, see if we can do that. Again, we want to start where your foot is even with the rubber there, right in front there, son, right there. Okay, lift the left leg and throw the ball. All right, it's a little, much better. As you can see, whenever we're this age, when we first start out, it's a little harder to throw the ball, especially for any distance. But you've got a basic start, and you want to remember that we want to have a proper follow-through. Okay, let's have the next youngster. Okay, now Arthur here is doing just a couple of things wrong, I think, that are very important, and they're things that we all do at times. First of all, his first step, the thing that we talked about earlier, the first step should be straight back. That's to keep our body going directly in one direction at all times. Whenever he goes here, he gets a little sideways motion here, and it's going to be a little harder for him to be consistently around the plate. The other one, and probably the biggest flaw that he might have, is you'll notice that he raised his front shoulder. As we raise our front shoulder, our bottom one drops, and then we have a harder time getting the baseball right out here where we want to have an effective release point, to where we're down in the strike zone instead of being consistently high. Okay, let's have the next. All right, this youngster here has pretty good form. The only thing I would say to him that, and again, this is one of the common mistakes that we make. Everything he done here was very good up to the point that he got to this position right here, and then he wanted to come up and watch the pitch instead of, as we deliver the pitch, remember, once we throw the baseball, we're no longer a pitcher, we're an infielder. He should stay down and be in a more compact position here, and that way he won't cut his pitch off and he will complete it. It's very good. Let's throw one more. Okay, much better. Next. Okay, it's your turn. Okay, this youngster here, he has very good form. He gets the ball out front. Your release point is very good. I think the only thing that I could see maybe that might help you is it looks like that you could perhaps have a little bit better concentration, and it's a common mistake for us as we start our wind-up to look down. If you just point your eyes at all times on the catcher, you might be able to see him. It looks like you have fairly good control. You'll be able to start moving the ball around within the strike zone. But overall, very good form. Okay, now Dan, come on. Okay, Dan, one of the things I think that might help you at your age, and you're going to be pitching for a while and you're going to get bigger and stronger, is you'll notice that he chose to throw the ball out here in the sidearm direction. I'd encourage you to try to get a little higher up with your arm, and above all other things we want to remember, we want to try to keep the elbow up so that the elbow's up here and we're able to get a little bit more downward flight on the baseball. After all, one of the most important things is to be able to keep the ball down in the strike zone. Take the ball here and just try to keep your elbow up. And if we're able to deliver in this position here, and we're able to drive, you'll see that if we're able to throw the ball in a downward position, we have a good chance of being down in the strike zone, as opposed to where you were here a while ago with this delivery here. We're going to have a tendency to be up all the time and to underthrow the baseball. I think the way for us to find out which is the natural throwing position for us is to just pick a ball up and see what is the farthest way that we can throw a baseball right now. And most of the time, for most of us, it's going to be with our elbow up again and to be able to get a little bit more extension out front. So we're throwing the ball on a downward plane, as opposed to when we're here, we have a tendency to throw the ball up or we undercut it. And then the ball, instead of being able to go through like this with the seams rotating that way, it ends up going through like this, which sort of has a footballing effect. In other words, we cut across the baseball. So I'd encourage you to get up on top just a little bit more. Okay, next. Okay, he's a pretty good sized youngster. Looks like he has a good arm. I think your pitches would be a little bit more effective for you if you were on this side of the rubber. And maybe not right now, but when we start throwing breaking pitches and things like that, we get a little better angle toward the outside part of the plate if we're a right-handed pitcher from the middle of the rubber on over. The other thing I think maybe that you might be able to do is to try to get a little bit more extension. Instead of throwing right in here, pushing the baseball a little bit, we could get up on top and make sure that we always stay on top of the ball. When I say on top of the ball, I'm talking about our hand on top of the baseball, not letting it ever get in this position here to where our palms are up. Anytime that we do that, we cheat ourselves with the baseball. Very good. Next. Very good, Dave. Threw the ball rather well. You demonstrated one of our most common problems, and that's throwing across our body. Now, the secret to throwing the baseball consistently towards home plate is that we step directly at the catcher. Now, if you'll notice that you stepped in this angle right here, this is your footprint right there. Your foot tells us by you stepping there that our body is trying to go this way, when home plate is that way. So therefore, we're going to get caught here, and we're going to throw what I call throw across our body. In other words, across this way. It's going to be very tough for us to be consistent with our control, but the biggest problem is that we're really leaving ourselves open to arm injury. It's going to take a lot of wear and tear on the shoulder and on the elbow, so we want to, as best we can, straighten ourselves out. An easy drill for us to correct this problem is for us simply to just take our glove where we stepped before and just to the right of center. I'll draw a straight line here, which will be center, and you're stepping across your body that way. It's for us to go ahead and take the wind up the same way. Now I want you to throw, and I want you to make sure that you miss that glove. I want you to step to the left of the glove. You may have to look down at the glove as you're delivering the pitch, but at least we're going to take this and step directly at the catcher. It's very good. Very quickly we've taken care of one of your problems. Now, one of the things that we have to do is we want to practice this so much that we can do this without the glove there. And the way that we do that is whenever we're warming up is to draw ourselves a straight line and see that we're stepping either on the line or, if anything, possibly a slight edge to the left of it. That way we won't throw across our body. That pretty well takes care of most of the common problems, with the exception, I think, of one, and I couldn't get any of you to do that, mainly because we don't have any base runners on base. But one of the biggest problems that we all make is to overthrow at times and to really rush our body. And when we get in the heat of the battle with men on first and second or bases loaded, and we have a close game, it's a very easy error for us to commit. And what we do then is we have a tendency to really stiffen up the wrist, and we want to try to throw the baseball a little harder than what we have been throwing. So therefore what we do is we really rush our body, but our arm many times stays back. And by doing that, we have a tendency to do a couple of things. First of all, we're going to drop our elbow, and I'm going to just push the baseball. The other thing that we're going to do at times is we're going to drag our arm, and I end up slinging the baseball anytime my body gets out in front of my arm. Now, one of the things that we talked about earlier is we want to try to maintain a nice loose wrist. This will allow us to not only have good ball movement, but allow us to get that extra little whip and push that we want to get on the fastball without trying to overthrow. It's a very difficult thing for us to do, and I think the best practice that we can have it is just to be able to relax at times. Sometimes we get in a crucial situation, and we can do this on the mound without worrying about a thing. But don't let yourself tense, tighten up, and squeeze the baseball, because then we lose all flexibility in the wrist, which is one of the most important levers that we have in our proper throwing. The last thing that I might say to you today is that there are three very important words that I think we have to have as a pitcher. We've gone over the mechanics, which we need to work on in order for us to have control, and that is one very key word for us. I think we not only need control just to be able to throw strikes, but we need to be able to move the ball around in the strike zone and to throw the ball inside, outside, high or low, whenever we feel like it's needed. We need to have a great deal of confidence. Confidence in ourselves, confidence in our teammates, confidence that we can overcome adversity, that we won't, whenever it gets down to the nitty-gritty and it gets real tough out here, that we won't collapse, that we'll always keep a great deal of confidence in ourselves, which in turn, it relates to our teammates. And the other thing I think is a key word to pitching, and if we don't have this, I think we're really in trouble, and it's something that we can all improve just simply by work. It goes right along with control, and that's the key word of concentration. We have to have concentration and be able to know what's going on in the game at all times. Not to be caught short here to where we're not aware of the situations and that sort of thing. And if you'll just remember one thing, if you'll always think one or two pitches ahead, one batter ahead, we're never surprised and we always make the right play as a pitcher. I've enjoyed working with you today, and hopefully that some of these tips will come in effect and make you a better pitcher, a more successful pitcher, and I hope that you'll enjoy the game of baseball. And above all things, remember, throw strikes.